The Honourable Maurice Williamson.
Mr Speaker, I'm delighted to take part in this debate because I think it's important to nail down a few particular issues. First of all, this is not the silver bullet or the be-all and end-all or the change that will make us the biggest, sort of wealthiest nation in the world. But, sir, it is actually an important step along the way to nationhood. And we need to understand we were a little colony at the bottom of the South Pacific. We called her Mother England. She literally took all of our goods and services, and we were sort of more British than you could get. Michael Joseph Savage, famous speech in 1939, "Where Britain goes, we go. Where Britain stands, we stand." Well, sir, that's no longer true. That is no longer true, sir. They cut the apron strings, they kicked us out like a teenager gets kicked out of home, and they didn't do it without it, and they didn't even give us a bit of spending money to go, sir. I have to say I'm a bit down and dirty on the way the Poms got rid of us. They just gave us the boot. But, sir, that's fine. We've had to find new markets, we've had to become a country in our own right, and guess what? Of recent times, brand New Zealand is getting to be so important around the world. Stuff that Peter Jackson has done, stuff that our wine industry is doing, stuff that value added to some of our technology and our dairy and our meat products and so on. Brand New Zealand is getting to be more and more important. And so I think it's well overdue for us to look at, as a nation, what is our symbol. And obviously one of the symbols of your nationhood is the flag. So to those who are worried about the changing of the flag, let's go through a few things. First of all, this is not New Zealand's first flag, the one we've currently got. It's not our first flag. Actually, until 1902, it was the Union Jack. That was our flag. Now, sir, let's just make sure that everyone understands what the Union Jack is. It's a combination of 3 sets of crosses: St David of Wales, St George of England, and St Andrew of Scotland. How does that have any relationship to us at the bottom of the South Pacific? How does a Union Jack have any relationship to us at all? Sir, it doesn't. And the next thing I think is worth telling, and this is actually a true story, Don McKinnon told us once in the Cabinet. He was our foreign minister, and Don McKinnon attended a big, I think it was a United Nations function and so on, and all the foreign ministers were asked to come up and pick their flag out of a big rotunda thing and go and place it in these holders and then stand underneath them. And it was done alphabetically, so when McKinnon went up, he was about halfway through as N for New Zealand, and our flag wasn't there. And Don McKinnon went, uh-oh. And then he suddenly spotted the Australian flag was still there. Gareth Evans, the then Foreign Minister of Australia, when he'd walked up, had gone up, picked our flag and gone and stuck it up, not realising he's got the wrong flag. So, sir, that's how similar they are. Why the hell our stars are red? No one's ever been able to tell me that, and theirs are white. But other than that, that's the only way I can spot the difference. They've got white stars, we got red ones, they got a bigger one, but it's hardly that much of a difference, sir. In fact, we want to be a nation in our own right. So I give absolutely full credit to the Prime Minister to saying it's time we began a process of identifying ourselves as a nation and having a symbol that represents it. Sir, I want to make it clear that a whole lot of my family members, my father and his brother served on the Achilles at the Battle of River Plate. 2 of his other brothers served in the New Zealand Army in the desert, and 2 of them served in the Air Force, sir, in part of the Battle of Britain. And I don't believe any one of them, who have all passed on, I don't believe any of them would say, I served under a particular flag, so I want that flag kept. You know why they served? They served against the tyranny of, in that particular case, the Nazis and what they were doing in the world, and they served for New Zealand. They served for their country and the people of this country to keep it safe. And the piece of linen that might have been fluttering above them on one day is not what they did it for. They did it for their nation and their people to keep them safe and secure. And I got a feeling a lot of old soldiers, many of those who have passed, would be very happy for us to be now moving to the idea of a different flag that stood out, that was us. That is New Zealand, that is us. And when we go on the world stage, everyone doesn't go, is that the Australian flag? No. Or the number of other nations that have got the Union Jack sitting up in their top left-hand corner, and everyone's saying, what country is that again? It would be great. And again, we've heard about Canada and the maple leaf. Sir, what a stunningly good example of change. Ask any Canadian, please do, because I've done it. Ask any Canadian, would they go back? Ask any Canadian, would they like to go back to their old flag? They wouldn't even, it's not even up for discussion. The maple leaf is now hoisted and they feel proud of it, and it gives them some identity. It is their nation, and it's not the same as anybody else's. And that's what I would love to see happen. I don't have a particular strong view about the design other than a couple of things. I would like it to be as simple as you can, because kids like to draw flags and you want to stick a flag on the side of your car when your rugby team's playing. So please don't make it that you have to be an artist of great thing and spend 3 hours drawing all the fancy bits to make it work. Something quite simple. In the case of the maple leaf, you can flick your hand around and draw the maple leaf within a couple of seconds, and that's it on a plain background. But just make it that it's a New Zealand icon that we can all be proud of, and that it can be put on products when we sell around the world, or we can wear it for part of our sporting teams. Because, sir, I make this point. When we see the All Blacks go to the Rugby World Cup and we're cheering them on, are they wearing the Union Jack? Come on. Have a look at any massive or rugby stadium and see whether the kids are out there waving the Union Jack to support the All Blacks. No, they're not. They're out there waving the silver fern, because at least at this point, until we get this flag thing sorted, it's the closest thing we can get to our nationhood. How awful would it be if we were up against the Poms in the final of the Rugby World Cup and we're waving a flag with the Union Jack on it? We wouldn't do it, sir. So it's not our first flag. We have changed it in the past. I don't accept the argument that people, because they fought under it and died, and many hundreds of thousands along the way have given their lives in that service, that they don't want to see that change now. And in fact, I think the point's been made already that on many of our war graves around the world, the silver fern is above every one of the commemorative little plaques for each of the soldiers. The silver fern is, not the Union Jack with a couple of stars on the bottom of it. So, sir, this is a really important step forward for us as a nation and where we go from here. And I'm delighted that we're taking it. Now, to those members from the Labor Party, and I've heard a few of them getting stuck into this government and saying, you know, you're boxing forward with this without the consent of the people. I want to say to them, they took some much bigger constitutional issue changes of this country than the flag, with no consultation whatsoever, and not to an election. What are they? Well, let's go through them. How about we take the getting rid of the Privy Council? So I support it. I'm not criticising them. I actually think the time to cut these strings with the Privy Council was well overdue. I support it. But Labor just boxed on, got rid of it, threw the Privy Council out. That's it. There was no referendum. There was no consultation. And it was not part of an election referendum. Done. Similarly with our knighthood honours and so on. They decided we don't like the sort of knights and the dames. We're just going to change all that. Bang, done, didn't consult on it and so on. So it's a bit rich when some people come into this house and say, oh, you haven't consulted with us, or you're not taking account of this, when those people alone went out and sort of banged things through. So I want to finally say to New Zealanders that this is not massive. This is not the game changer that will see us the economic powerhouse to take on the world. But it is a really important element of our becoming a nation. It's a really important part of us being an entity in the rest of the world. And I would love to think that we ended up with a flag, and as I said before, I don't have any preconceived ideas on it, but a flag that New Zealanders, when they were travelling, had it on their backpacks, had it on their shirts, that when we were at rugby matches and we saw that flying, or we saw it at the... Someone actually showed me a clip the other day of a couple of Commonwealth Games medal ceremonies, and the flags were all going up in the air, and there was two, well, they were all three with Union Jacks, and one had some red stars and one had some white stars, and you couldn't work out whether the Australians had got the gold or it was the New Zealanders who got the gold. And if anyone from overseas was looking at it, they'd say, oh, that country cleaned up on all three. So it has to be different. It has to be quite unique. It has to, I agree with a couple of the people speaking from the perspective of Maoridom. It would be great if we could include something like the koru that Air New Zealand have done, something that was uniquely Maori as part of it. I'd love to see that. But in the end, sir, this country deserves to have a stake in the ground that people around the world recognise. It goes with our pride as a nation as we go forward.